Picture this: a single delivery, a fleeting moment, and a bold confession that ignites a firestorm of desire, danger, and secrets that could unravel everything. "In a black man delivered her bed then," she said. "You're exactly my type. You know that. Prepare for a roller coaster of passion, betrayal, and jaw-dropping twists that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about love and trust." Don't miss a single word of this electrifying tale. Subscribe now to dive into stories that grip your heart and won't let go. "A black man delivered her bed then," she said. "You're exactly my type. You know that." The summer heat clung to Atlanta like a second skin, the kind of sticky, suffocating warmth that made even the shade feel like a betrayal. Simone Carter stood in the doorway of her new apartment, fanning herself with a crumpled IKEA catalog, her auburn curls plastered to her neck. At 32, she'd finally escaped the claustrophobic grip of her small-town Georgia roots, trading gossiping neighbors and her mother's endless church potlucks for a sleek, modern loft in Midtown. The apartment was a blank canvas, white walls, polished concrete floors, and a view of the skyline that made her feel like she'd finally arrived. But it was empty, save for a few boxes and a coffee table she'd scored at a thrift store. Today, though, was the day her new bed was arriving, the centerpiece of her fresh start. She'd spent weeks agonizing over the perfect frame of plush, tufted queen size with a headboard that screamed sophistication. It was more than furniture. It was a declaration of independence, a promise to herself that she was done with the past, done with the men who'd left her heart in pieces, done with settling. The delivery truck rumbled into the parking lot at 2:17 p.m., 17 minutes late, and Simone's irritation flared. She'd been tracking the order obsessively, refreshing the app like it was her job. The driver's name popped up on her screen: Marcus. No last name, just Marcus, with a generic avatar of a delivery truck. She imagined a grizzled, middle-aged guy with a beer gut and a bad attitude, the kind who'd grunt and leave her to wrestle the bed frame up the stairs alone. But when the truck's back door rolled up and Marcus stepped out, Simone's breath caught in her throat. He was tall, over 6 feet, with skin like polished ebony and shoulders that filled out his Navy uniform in a way that made the fabric look grateful. His lokes were neatly tied back, and when he glanced up at her building, his eyes dark, sharp, and impossibly warm locked onto hers for a split second. She ducked back inside, heart pounding, suddenly aware of her sweat-stained tank top and the fact that she hadn't bothered with makeup. "Get it together, Simone," she muttered, smoothing her curls in the hallway mirror. She wasn't some teenager swooning over a stranger. She was a grown woman, a marketing manager with a corner office and a 5-year plan. But when Marcus knocked on the door, his voice a low, smooth delivery for Ms. Carter, her resolve wobbled. She opened the door, and there he was, clipboard in hand, a faint smile playing on his lips. "Hey, I'm Marcus," he said, and his voice was like molasses, slow and rich. "Got your bed where you want it." Simone pointed to the bedroom, words tripping over themselves as she tried to sound casual. "Ah, just in there. Thanks, thank you." She cringed internally. "Smooth, real smooth." Marcus nodded, his smile widening just enough to show a dimple, and he maneuvered the massive box through the door with an ease that made her wonder how much he could lift. She followed him, pretending to check her phone, but her eyes kept drifting to the way his biceps flexed under his sleeves, the way his presence seemed to fill the room. He set the box down in the bedroom, wiping his brow with the back of his hand. "You want me to help you set it up?" he asked, glancing at her. "No extra charge." She should have said no. She had tools, a YouTube tutorial queued up, and a fierce determination to prove she could do this herself. But something about Marcus, maybe the way he looked at her, like he saw more than just a customer, made her nod. Sure, that'd be great. For the next hour, they worked together, unpacking the frame, screwing in bolts, and trading small talk that felt oddly natural. He was from Chicago, he said, moved to Atlanta for a fresh start after a messy divorce. She shared that she'd just left her hometown, too, chasing a promotion and a chance to figure out who I am without everyone else's opinions. He laughed, a deep, warm sound that made her stomach flip. "I get that," he said. "Sometimes you gotta leave to find yourself." By the time the bed was assembled, the room felt different, charged with something unspoken. Simone leaned against the doorframe, watching Marcus tighten the last screw. "You're good at this," she said, and before she could stop herself, the words tumbled out. "You're exactly my type, you know that." Her face burned as soon as she said it. She hadn't meant to. God, what was wrong with her? Flirting with the delivery guy. But Marcus didn't flinch. He looked up, his eyes meeting hers, and for a moment, the air crackled. "Is that so?" he said, his voice low, teasing. "Good to know, Ms. Carter." He stood, brushing his hands on his pants, and handed her the clipboard to sign. "Maybe I'll see you around." He left, and Simone spent the rest of the day replaying the moment, mortified but exhilarated. She didn't expect to see him again. It was a one-off, a silly crush born of loneliness and a long day. But 2 days later, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Hey, it's Marcus. Got another delivery in your building tomorrow. Coffee after." Her heart raced. She typed yes before she could overthink it. Their first coffee date at a cozy midtown cafe was electric. Marcus was funny, thoughtful, and disarmingly honest. He told her about his ex-wife, a lawyer who'd left him for her boss, and how he'd taken the delivery job to clear his head while he figured out his next move. Simone opened up about her own past, a string of relationships with men who'd promised forever but delivered excuses. By the time they parted ways, she was smitten, and when he kissed her cheek outside her building, she felt like she was floating. They fell into a rhythm, seeing each other whenever Marcus's delivery schedule allowed. He'd show up with takeout after a long shift, or she'd meet him at a dive bar where they'd laugh over cheap beers. He was different from the men she'd dated, grounded, unpretentious, with a quiet strength that made her feel safe. But there were moments that gave her pause. He was cagey about certain details: his family, his past in Chicago, the specifics of his divorce. "It's complicated," he'd say, and she'd let it slide, not wanting to ruin what they had. After all, she had her own secrets. She hadn't told him about the real reason she'd left her hometown, a scandal involving her ex-fiancé, a married pastor who'd been caught embezzling church funds. She'd been dragged through the mud, labeled a homewrecker by people who didn't know the half of it. Atlanta was her clean slate, and Marcus felt like part of that. 3 months in, things got serious. Marcus spent nights at her place, his clothes mingling with hers in the laundry, his toothbrush in her bathroom. They talked about the future, vague plans of traveling together, maybe even moving in. But then, the first crack appeared. Simone was scrolling through her phone one evening while Marcus showered, and a notification popped up on his phone, left on the counter. "Babe, we need to talk. Call me." The sender was listed as L. Her stomach dropped. She didn't touch his phone. She wasn't that person, but when he came out, towel around his waist, she couldn't hold it in. "Who's L?" she asked, her voice sharper than she intended. Marcus froze, just for a second, before his face softened. "My sister LaToya," he said, picking up the phone. "She's been going through some stuff. I'll call her later." He kissed her forehead, and she wanted to believe him. But the seed of doubt was planted. Over the next few weeks, she noticed more late-night texts. He'd step outside to answer. A new password on his phone, a vague excuse about working overtime when his schedule didn't add up. She tried to brush it off, but the unease grew, a gnawing feeling that she was missing something. Then came the night that changed everything. Simone was working late, finalizing a campaign for a major client, when her coworker, Jenna, sent her a link to a local news article. The headline read, "Atlanta delivery driver linked to string of high-profile burglaries." Her heart stopped when she saw the photo. Marcus, in handcuffs, being led into a police station. The article detailed how a delivery driver had been using his job to case wealthy homes, passing information to a crew that executed precision break. Simone's mind raced. The late nights, the secretive calls, the way he'd always ask about her neighbor's schedules, it all clicked into place. A puzzle she hadn't wanted to solve. She confronted him that night, her voice trembling with anger and betrayal. "Is it true, Marcus? Are you a thief?" He didn't deny it. Instead, he sat on her couch, head in his hands, and told her a story that made her blood run cold. He wasn't just a delivery driver. He'd been recruited by a man named Victor, a childhood friend from Chicago who ran a sophisticated crime ring. Marcus had been in debt after his divorce, drowning in legal fees, and Victor offered a way out. "It was supposed to be one job," he said, his voice breaking. "But it's never just one. I didn't want you to know. Simone, I love you." She wanted to scream, to throw him out, but his words stopped her. Love. He'd never said it before, and despite everything, it hit her like a freight train. She told him to leave, that she needed